this is one I have been waiting for a very long time. So, like a lot of movies over the past year, this poor film has been bounced around from release date to release date for almost 2 years. This was originally supposed to come out in 2020. Of course, that didn't happen. They moved it to 2021. I believe it's supposed to be released in February of 2021, I think. And then, inexplicably, it got moved back. And finally, it is here. And I have just been chomping at the bit to get at this one, because I was a huge fan of what Kenneth Branagh did with Murder on the Orient Express, and I believe I can honestly say now I have become a huge fan of Kenneth Branagh just as a filmmaker. I was always a big fan of him as an actor, but I've become just a huge admirer of what he does as a director. I won't say that this didn't come with a little bit of caution. After all, the last film that I had been highly anticipating, that had taken a long time to be released due to the pandemic, ended up at the top of my worst list this past year. So there was not without a tiny touch of concern that I finally bought my ticket to come see Death on the Nile. And, oh, it feels good to breathe. Oh, it feels wonderful. And, I saw that this one had gotten an IMAX release, and I didn't see it in IMAX, but I could totally see why it would be worth seeing in IMAX. Oh, what a gorgeous movie. What an absolutely gorgeous film, and what an amazing take on the subject matter. I said it after I reviewed Murder on the Orient Express all those years ago, and I'll say it again. I truly hope there's another one. I simply, not only have I become a huge fan of Kenneth Branagh as a director, but I am especially in love with what he is doing with these Agatha Christie reimaginings. Because it's very difficult to reimagine a work that has been so beloved and so overproduced in the past. There are so many versions of Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, and there are hundreds of different Poirots. Of course, David Schwimmer, I'm going to totally mispronounce his name. You know who I'm talking about, who played him for years on PBS as kind of the quintessential Poirot. But so taking a character like that, who has been reimagined and reinterpreted so many times, and finding something fresh to do with it is a challenge. And I felt like Branagh was up to it with Murder on the Orient Express, and I feel he really steps up to the once again here with this film. So let's discuss this real quick. This is a difficult one to talk about because it is a mystery, so you don't want to say too much and give away spoilers, even though it's based on a book that's been out for, I think, well over 100 years, or I might be pushing that a bit, and based on a property that's been remade and retold so many different times. So I don't know if spoilers are really necessary, but just for the sake of argument, let's just say spoiler warning, put it out there. So, once again, Hercule Poirot, as played by Kenneth Branagh, is off on another supposed holiday. This time he gets caught up in a murder of a wealthy heiress on a boat that is cruising the Nile, hence the title. And of course, in classic Agatha Christie fashion, everyone on board seems to have had some beef with this woman, seem to have some reason. There's the jealous best friend whose boyfriend she stole. There is a doctor who was in love with her. There is her godmother who doesn't approve of her and the way she spends her wealth. there's a cavalcade of suspects, and it's up to Poirot to kind of shift through all of the endless motives and find the one that actually fits. So, it's a typical Agatha Christie mystery. I don't think I need to go into much more detail than that. Ironically, it is the details that set this film apart. And one of the things I noticed so much about Kenneth Branagh as a director watching this movie, and I've seen several of his films, not the least of which Belfast, just this past year, Murder on the Orient Express, the original Thor, his Much Ado About Nothing. So I've seen a decent amount of his pictures to finally start to see patterns in his directing. And what I have discovered about Kenneth Branagh as a director is, God, he is in love with directing. God, he is in love with directing. The camera shots and everything, and the movement of the camera, when he chooses to do a long dolly shot, when he chooses to do big sweeping shots, his composition, where he places his actors, it seems like almost every shot is designed to be a screenshot, of the cast. They are always beautifully, immaculately framed. And I mentioned this in my review of Miss Willoughby, is that you could tell the two actors were having a lot of fun. In this movie, I can tell the director is having a lot of fun. That he is just directing his heart and soul out. And sometimes it can be a little bit to the film's detriment, because it seems like sometimes he gets so carried away with his big sweeping shots that the story and the pacing get a little lost. I do think the film drags a bit in the opening, simply because Kenneth Branagh is just so in love with filming in Egypt and is just having a blast getting all of these gorgeous shots to give his film this sweeping grandeur. But it's hard to get mad at that or qualify it as a knock against the film, again, when there is just such passion and desire behind it. Something else I notice about Branagh now, after comparing these 5 movies, is his films feel big and grand. Both this one and Murder on the Orient Express are two mysteries that take place in a confined space. That whole thing about, being trapped with a murderer. A train in the first one, a boat on this one. And yet he makes both of those locations feel so big and spacious and glorious. And I think back to, of course, Thor, an obvious example. That film is very big, had to be. But I also think back to Belfast, which I just saw this past year. A little black and white movie set in just one street in Belfast. And yet, as I recall that movie, it felt huge. That movie felt huge and sprawling and beautiful. It's not enough to him that the movie is big, it's that it's big and beautiful. That his worlds are gorgeous. Even something like Belfast, where the story can be very down and dirty and gritty, there's still this beauty to it. And this movie is fucking gorgeous. Gorgeous to look at. The costuming is immaculate. And it's immaculate when you notice how well the men are dressed, because you always notice the gorgeous outfits the women are wearing, that because they're designed to be noticed. But when you notice the superb cut of all the guys' suit jackets and how they fit each one of them like a glove, it's a fucking gorgeous movie. So this movie is a feast for the senses. So how is it the rest? It is awesome. It is, I love the way Kenneth Branagh updates these films. Not just in his choices of diversified casting, which is a big selling point, but it's also that the diversified casting always serves a purpose. He's not just doing it to do it. He is very careful, you can see, in which characters he makes, what new race, because that's going to alter their perception, and it's going to alter the way the character is interpreted. So it's not kind of a hodgepodge. Anybody who accuses him of, oh, you're just trying to be woke. No, he is not just trying to be woke. He is being woke, but he's being woke in the right way. He's not doing token casting. He is adjusting the story and the characters to make them more accessible to a modern audience and to reinterpret them. Again, this is a story that's been done so many times. So you've got to add something different to it. And his choice of cast is spectacular. And the changes he makes give the film a new energy. I've seen the movie before. I've seen Death on the Nile a couple times, a couple of the different renditions. And I know how it comes out. But this felt fresh and new to me, even though the ending was the same. The characters felt new and different. The situation felt fresh. He kept the core of it, but changed the details enough to make it new. And that's something I think a lot of updates or rebrands or whatever, I think that's the point that they miss a lot of the time. The cast is phenomenal. I will say I think that the cast for Murder on the Orient Express was stronger. It felt like it had some more heavy hitters in it. This one, only real name is Annette Bening. I know some people say, Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot. She's a big name, but I'm sorry, she is not a powerhouse actor. I will say I think she's getting better. The last two films I've seen her in, this one and Red Notice, I think she is definitely improving, but she is still clearly the weak link in this cast. Clearly. She's just, I don't know, all that beauty does not necessarily translate into screen presence. Sorry. But she's still decent here. This is a decent performance. I think a couple of notable mentions for this one. I think Emma McKay, I think is the actress's name, who plays the jilted lover whose husband, played by Armie Hammer, ran off and married Gal Gadot instead. She's phenomenal. She's really good and brings a really sinister energy to her. And it's it's difficult with this movie because everything is so huge and all the motivations are so big and all the characters are so large, and yet they're large and yet they have subtlety. And she plays it really, really well, especially when I looked at IMDb real quick and saw that this was only like her 7th screen credit. So she's still cutting her teeth, and she's, I think she's going to be a presence. Also have to give a big hats off to Russell Brand as the Doctor in this one. So far removed from his comedy shtick that he was known for in the early 2000s. And actually showing off some very, very profound acting chops. I was very impressed by him. When I found out that was him, I was like, oh shit, really? I will say, and I think this may be where maybe the director's ego comes in a little bit, is that I feel, again, in Murder on the Orient Express, he surrounded himself with actors of equal or greater accomplishment than him. And he's a great actor, is Kenneth Branagh. But he populated Murder on the Orient Express with fellow great actors. And I feel like in this one, again, I feel like the other characters were a little muted so Poirot could take much more of the center stage, which is not a bad choice. I'm not knocking that choice. I'm just saying it didn't feel as much as an ensemble piece as the first one. This one is clearly Poirot's story. And it states that right from the beginning. It gives us an interesting flashback that kind of shows the origins of Poirot. Which is not something I think we necessarily need. Like, I don't need to know the origin of Poirot's mustache and I don't need to know the origins of Columbo's trench coat. But what I liked about it is that unlike other films that throw in an origin story for, to pad the runtime, it feels like, this one, his origin and what he has lost is a crucial point to his character in the film. This film is all about love, lost love, forbidden love, jilted love, and expressing who he loved and how that affected him is crucial to his development in the story. I'm teaching playwriting at the moment, and one of my students wants to write a mystery, and her detective character, we were talking about what's the character arc, and she said, well, he has no arc. He's just there to solve the mystery. So that's not, if there's no arc to the character, then why are we watching it? And Poirot has an arc, which again is something you might not think Poirot needs, because the whole point of a character like him is he just keeps coming back and doing the same thing over and over and over again. But I do feel like, again, what makes this movie kind of special is it really does shine the light on Poirot as a character and gives him more, it fills him out a bit. It makes him more than just the witty detective who's there to solve the crime. So yeah, I really enjoyed Branagh's performance and his directing in this. There's not really a lot I disliked about this movie. There are only two things I disliked about this movie, and again, one of them, the pacing. In early days of the film, the pacing is very, very slow. He is really selling us on the majesty, on the beauty. He's doing a lot of scenery shots, gorgeous stuff. And again, I can see why you might want to see this movie in IMAX, because it's like, damn, if it wasn't for the heat, you'd want to go to Egypt, But it does drag the movie down. The other thing I could knock this movie about were the two fucking people sitting 10 feet away from me who talked through the entire goddamn thing. But that I can't really blame the film for. That was just poor booking on my side. So there's not a lot to really get on this movie about. The only minor things are either, again, just nitpicks, or just saying that I kind of preferred certain aspects of Murder on the Orient Express a little better. And I think, again, in that, I think the main thing is that I felt the cast was a lot stronger. A lot of really capable actors in that one, pulling a lot of weight, and more of an ensemble piece than this one. I don't know quite what else to say about it. Go see it. Definitely go see it. It is a good movie. So, final grade for Death on the Nile. I'm going an A- on this one. It loses a little bit of ground, just a tiny bit, for the pacing, and again, the cast is good, but not as strong as the first one. That's okay, but everything else in it is just, it's great. It's gorgeous. It's energetic. It's fresh. It's original. I loved it, and I really do hope that he does another one. I don't want him to get bogged down in these, but I think this would be a fun thing to return to every so often, and he is clearly having a great time directing these movies. So I know there are other Poirot stories. I know we're past the two really big ones, but I think that would actually be a neat challenge for Kenneth Branagh. You've done the two really well-known Poirot stories. Grab one of the ones that isn't as famous and see if you could do an Undertaker and make it famous. So that's my challenge to you, Mr. Branagh, and I hope you pick it up, because I would be so there. I would gladly wait another 2 years through another pandemic to see another one of your Poirot films. So, and I can't think of higher praise than that. All right, so there you go. I'm very happy so far with the quality of movies I've been seeing in 2022. So far, things are looking fairly good this year. Let's see how long that streak can last. So, thank you all for joining me. Hope you're all doing well. Take care of yourselves. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.